A little bit of surprise, a little bit of impromptu, but we'll give it a sec, see if we can get some people in here. And yeah, so this is Adam Bees. I think that's how I say your name.
Yeah, that's how
Buys.
you say it. Yeah.
All right, Bees, and yeah, so Adam's been going through some homelessness and stuff like that. He's been making some awesome YouTube videos about it. And in terms of just being on the chosen one's path or on being on the path of God, we all go through crazy stuff. We all have these situations we go through. And if you look at Adam, like smart, talented, like, but these are just kind of the persecutions we go through and the things we endure. Yeah, so Adam, if you want to kind of introduce yourself, talk about your channel, I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, so a few years back I was a software designer, living the dream. I had a nice home. I have two kids, pretty crazy life. I have a 14-year-old son and a 27-year-old daughter, 28-year-old daughter. So there's a big age gap there. But I was pretty much living the dream. I had everything, person would want. And it kind of all started to go downhill back in, it was like December of 2021. I worked remotely from 2015 on forward. I lived out in Amish country, about an hour north of Pittsburgh. Just decided to get out of the city because of all the stuff going on. And I was working this remote job that I started working remotely for in 2019, and that's important because in December of 2021, with all the COVID nonsense and the Jim Jones Kool-Aid cult that the company I was working for turned into, they came at me with an ultimatum saying, if you don't take the shot, you're going to be fired. And this was 2 weeks before Christmas. So I said, well, it looks like I'm going to be fired. And so, it kind of got nasty. I waited until the all company Zoom meeting and I made sure to tell, all 150 people on the Zoom meeting what was up, and wasn't really very polite about it. But so I left that job, struggled for about 4 months. A new job, a better job fell into my lap. And things were going pretty well, but I was just angry, bitter, and just like the everything, not just the COVID shot, not just the job. It was, everything going back to 2020 when when this out of control government started clamping down on us. And doing what they do, telling us, oh, you're not allowed to leave your house. You're not allowed to gather in public. You got to wear a stupid mask, all that stuff. When Joe Biden told me I wasn't allowed to leave my house, I said, hey, come on. And I took my kid and we went and drove around the country. We went and visited like 27 states on a road trip, not just one road trip. But I mean, we just weren't going along with it. But, I have friends who lost their businesses. I have people lost their jobs. People's lives were completely flipped upside down. And I was just angry about all of this and angry that people were going along with it. And so fast forward to August of 2022, and they raided Trump's house in Florida. I had just gotten back from a exhausting road trip, followed by a weekend of taking my son on a 20-mile hike through the national forest. I was exhausted, and I just started shit talking on this social media site, Gab. And I said a lot of really bad things, and they got twisted around into saying that I was threatening the FBI. And so there were 7 social media posts that the FBI raided my house on a Friday night while I was fast asleep. And let's see, I was in a soundproof bedroom basement bedroom. No light or sound comes into that room. So I was asleep. The first I knew anything was wrong was when my house was being smashed apart. And so I jumped out of bed. I had a pair of jeans on, no underwear, no socks, no shoes, no shirt. Just I grabbed a gun that was next to my bed, ran upstairs to see what the hell's going on, and it's the FBI surrounding my house. So they turned this into, you made threats all week long. this guy was in an armed standoff for several hours with the FBI, using his 12-year-old son as a human shield, whatever. They just made up all kinds of crazy stuff. Threw me in jail. I spent 14 months in various county jails settings, waiting for my day in court. I ended up pleading guilty because when the federal government charges you with something, the federal government has a 97% conviction rate. So you're done. I mean, and they just drain you. They drain your money. They drain your finances. They drain your ability to fight back. I think the quotes I was getting for a lawyer for a federal case, it doesn't matter what it is. A federal attorney for a federal case is going to be something like $100,000 to start. So when you're in it, when you have a Fed case, unless you're a drug dealer that made $2 million in, last year, you're going to be getting a federal public defender. And so, I waited 14 months for my day in court. If I would have went to trial, prosecutor and all of that, they were going to retaliate by trying to get me 5 to 10 years in prison for these social media posts. So they were offering me a plea deal of like 24 months, and they took 7 of the 7 posts and charged me with 2 crimes for each post. And so my 2 options were accept that deal, but then there's a bunch of these add-ons that they add on to your charges. And they were trying to stick me with a bunch of extra time for coming to the door with the gun, because they were trying to say that I was ready to throw down with them and throw down with the FBI. Like, a barefoot guy with no shirt on coming to the door with a gun, it doesn't fit the mold of someone who's about to throw down with the Fed. And so I decided to plead guilty because even if I had the government was going to drop all of these counts except for 2, and the 2 related to 1 post. Because even the government thought that these other 6 posts don't qualify as actual threats. And so I decided to plead guilty to all of it because it didn't make any difference in terms of the sentencing guidelines, so that my lawyer could go in and fight all of these extra enhancements that they were trying to add to my charges. And she got some of that dropped. And so when it all said and done, I got a 24-month sentence, and then I got out about 4 or 5 months early because of good behavior and that kind of stuff. They actually sent me to Danbury for the last 4 months, which is where Steve Bannon is right now. It's out of all the experiences I had, it's a pretty chill. Bannon's not. He's basically playing pickleball right now. He's going to he's walking around a track outside. He can play softball. There's a bunch of things to do. It's not a real violent place. It sucks. It's prison. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's a whole lot of stuff that sucks about it, but that 4 months that he's going to be there is going to go by fast. So I get out of prison in April. I come home. My relationship, I moved into an apartment. I was in a relationship. Then I wasn't right before I came home. That went downhill. So about 6 weeks after I came home, I ended up getting thrown out of the apartment and ended up homeless. And so I've been wandering the streets, so to speak, of Jamestown, New York, where I don't know anybody. That I was only here for that purposes of that relationship, and that didn't work out. And so I've been basically just pounding the pavement here in Jamestown, looking for a job, living in a homeless shelter right now because my options are, I'm fully prepared to go live out in the woods. I've got, I'm a survivalist. I had a 60-pound backpack when I walked out of that apartment with everything I would need to not just look for a job and try to get on my feet, but everything I would need if I was going to go out and live in the woods somewhere. And I have places mapped out. It's something I could do. But there was a homeless shelter that said they would take me in. And so I get at least a roof over my head, showers, and, they serve meals there and other things like that. So that's how I ended up there. And on the first day that I was homeless, I was talking to my best friend about, should I document this? Should I just throw this up on YouTube and put myself out there? And I was kind of, me and my best friend were kind of going back and forth about that. And I didn't really want to do it. And I'm like, I'm not even going to have time to do this. And so the first day of being homeless was crazy and hectic. And by the time it was all said and done, it was already 11 o'clock at night. And so the next day I had some time like to go walk around the park and just kind of chill for a bit. And so I just grabbed out my phone. I said, to hell with it, I'll do it. I'll get on YouTube and I'll start talking about this. And that's kind of how it started. And I've been doing it every day since. And so now I'm on like homeless day. Today was 53. And so there's no day one video, but there's been a video every day since, just kind of talking about what's been going on, and on the days that there's not much going on, talking about just stories that I have to share. So that's the story in a nutshell there. I'll take it back to you, so I'm not the only one talking.
Yeah, no, I've got a lot of questions. That's a super interesting story. Lot to unpack, a lot of craziness going on there. And the first thing I want to start with is just like, we have a system in our society. I like to call it the matrix, but it's the government, the corporations, it's this whole, consortium. And, it gets us angry. It gets us frustrated. I feel angry and frustrated about it. I know you felt angry and frustrated about it. You made a few social media posts on some alternative social media platform, and then they end up giving you 24 months up to 10, tried to give you 5 to 10 years. It's just like, talk about not having freedom of speech, talk about draconian punishments, talk about, raiding your house. Like, this is absolutely insane stuff, that they did to you. And this is a complete miscarriage of justice. This is not law and order. This is just complete thuggery and BS because you didn't want to go along with the system. And it's just like, man, you literally ended up serving 14 months in prison. And it's just like, I can tell you never hurt anybody. You've never, I don't know, sold drugs. I can tell you're a clean cut guy. You just got frustrated with the system and with what our government's doing. And it's really nuts. And I want to definitely get your story out there, and so people can know that, like, hey, like, I don't know how free our society is, after hearing your story. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I was in a total of about 20 months, maybe 19 and some change by the time I came home. And the last 4 months of it was in the low security Danbury. But before that, I mean, one of the places they had me at for a couple of months was, 3 to 5 people a day were getting stabbed right in front of me. It was really crazy. But two things that about what you just said. Keep in mind, I shared a cell for a few months with a guy, really cool guy. He was an engineer in the steel industry. He made, he was making like 200 grand a year at his job, and he killed somebody. It was an accident. It was a DUI. And they gave him 14 months in jail and then 7 months of house arrest. But I got 2 years for a bad tweet, and so I look at that and I'm like, there's no. And I got so many other stories, co-defendants on the same cases where they both get charged with the same crime, and one defendant gets, 6 months, another one gets 10 years for the same offense, and just, I saw so much injustice done to so many people while I was going through this process over the 20 months that I went through it, that it just opened my eyes to not just my situation, but a lot of other people. And the second thing, like you were saying, you're not allowed to make threats online. You're not, and if you do it online, the federal government's going to get involved because they can say it's an interstate situation. You've made threats across state lines. In my case, they charged me with making interstate threats and threatening a federal officer. The threatening a federal officer charge, the name of the actual statute is long and hard to remember, but that's essentially what it was. And let's see, so they did that. But How many times have you heard the liberals this just over the last couple of weeks saying they want to go out and assassinate Donald Trump?
Yeah.
You know, they do this every day. They're out starting riots. They're out burning cities down. They're out, they're out defacing the parks. They're beating up cops. They're doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and they're just getting a free pass. But if you're on the other side of that political fence and you make a bad tweet, you cross the line to where they can actually say, oh, well, that actually, okay, we can qualify that. We can charge him with a crime for that. They're going to come, they caused about $11,000 damage to the house I was living in. I lost it all. My house is gone. My vehicles are gone. My career is gone. My friends, family, everybody just turned their backs on it. And like when I got out of prison, I'm basically starting from ground zero. I just happened to have 25 plus years of experience doing what I was doing. And I have a few tools in my belt I'm not complete. They can't completely shut me down, but my plan was to keep my mouth shut and just kind of chill. And then when I ended up getting tossed out into the street, I'm like, all right, all bets are off. I got to do something. So.
No, I mean, yeah, you got to fight back because, like, freedom of speech in our country is an illusion. Clearly from your situation shows that we do not have freedom of speech, and yeah, to the point of the hypocrisy with the liberals and stuff like that, which I talk about sometimes on my channel. I live in Seattle, Washington, man. So
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard about Chaz or Chop or whatever, but
Yep, I know.
yeah, I went over and visited there, and it's a bunch of these weird Antifa guys wearing these black outfits with walkie-talkies walking around. They smashed up the police station. The police left and fled, and it was a whole insane kind of area and situation. The whole place was just covered in graffiti. I think 3 people ended up getting killed because a bunch of gang activity was happening there at night and stuff. And it's just like they just allow that to happen. One of our city council members, I think her name's Kashama Sawant, she's super lefty, and she was involved in that and protesting with them and marching with them and stuff. And it's like, you know, it's just they allow this manipulative stuff to happen, and then someone like you makes a few, 7 angry, tweets of just screw the government, and then they said you to 20 months in jail. That's crazy. Like that's absolutely nuts, And yeah. Sorry, looks like you wanted to say something there.
No, you're good. Let's see. So yeah, I've been paying attention to all that stuff since like the Seattle WTO riots back in the day. I can't remember that's pretty far back.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there wasn't Bill Clinton in office back then. I kind of woke up to the Matrix. I can tell you exactly what woke me up. It was TWA Flight 800 back in, I think it was 1996. When this plane crashed outside of Long Island and everybody on the plane died, and then the government basically tried to cover up what happened, and we really don't know to this day exactly what it was, but it could have been a terrorist attack that they kind of swept it under the rug, and they're like, oh well, the wings fell off, and that's just what happened. And they just kind of, all these people on the shore of Long Island saw something go up in the air and hit the plane, but the FBI that they were all lost, all 150 people. But I knew somebody on the plane. There was this woman, her name was Judy Penzer. She was an artist in Pittsburgh, and I lived in Pittsburgh for about 25 plus years. And so this was when I was in art school. I worked at a Kinko's across the street from art school, and she used to come in all the time, and she would bother me. She would have me make prints of her slides of her artwork and stuff, but I got to know her over time. She was actually a pretty cool woman. She was actually helping the inner city kids. They were doing like graffiti projects to beautify the neighborhood, but she was teaching these kids how to do these giant murals. And she had painted this really famous mural on the side of a building in Pittsburgh of Roberto Clemente, Terry Bradshaw, and Mario Lemieux. And it was a well-known, famous painting that you could see for any photo of the Pittsburgh skyline of those years in time. You'd see this mural because it took up the whole side of the building. And so she was famous for that. Well, she died on that plane crash. And so when it happened, I just started paying more attention to that story because I knew somebody. And then that led down the rabbit hole. And the more I learned about that, and the more I learned about that, and then all of a sudden, oh, this thing, the Clinton body count. And, there was so many. I had this was back when you had to buy VHS tapes on the back table of a conspiracy theory dinner at some local restaurant, because YouTube wasn't a thing back then. This was in like the 90s. But like you'd get the Clinton body count video, and then 2 months later you'd see, but it would be like the second edition, because there's like 10 more bodies and they had to redo the video. And so that's kind of how I got started paying attention to all this. And it's kind of ironic too, because a lot of people don't talk about this, but the censorship, when it all started, when 9/11 happened, I was already in that rabbit hole. So I'm already kind of skeptical, and I'm watching, the Alex Jones videos and all that kind of stuff. And I'm getting all the sides and all the here's what really happened that day information. And, George Bush was president. And this was back, and shortly after 9/11, anybody who spoke out against the government, typically the liberals. How many times did you see Bill O'Reilly going, cut his mic, cut the mic? He would just, people would get on Bill O'Reilly's show and they'd start speaking out against the regime and what's going on and start telling the truth. And these news hosts, cut the mic, cut the camera, shut them up. We can't have them. They were getting censored. And I remember YouTube, and when YouTube first came out, it was the Wild West, but it didn't take long before they started censoring people speaking out against the liberals were getting censored. And a lot of people back then were calling me a commie liberal because I was speaking out against the things going on. And at the time, it was you were speaking out against the Bush dynasty instead of the liberals back then. And so the way I see it, it's just the pendulum swings one way, then it goes back and forth and back and forth. And you had all the censorship starting back then in the early 2000s is when that all kicked into gear. But they were censoring, all the people that spoke out against the Gulf War were the liberals, and they were getting censored and they were getting pounded on, and their videos were getting shut off and their channels were getting deleted. But you swing back now, Donald Trump's president, and it's swung completely the opposite direction, so that the people on the right and the people, those are the people that are getting censored now. But they're doing it a lot harder. And each time the pendulum swings the other direction, the retaliation gets worse and worse. So it's, when that pendulum swings back the other way and the lefties are the ones getting kicked off the platforms, that's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah. Here's the thing I've come to find in my own research is that left or right, liberal or conservative, whatever, like all the people who are powerful in the world, they're all connected. They go to
Right.
the Pittsburgh meeting, they go to Bohemian Grove and, burn an effigy of a man to a giant statue of Baal. These people are all interconnected. They're creepy. They are definitely involved in some kind of satanic worship or something like that. Because why do they have a big idol of Baal that they're burning stuff too? And I've looked into certain stuff and certain government agencies. I don't want to say too much here, but like I've seen some really dark, creepy stuff. I've seen some weird stuff. I've always been interested in conspiracy theories, but I've never been able to find a good source. But I came across a website called whatonearthishappening.com, and it's this guy named, you probably know about that, a guy named Mark Passiow, who used to be a satanic priest. And then he's telling you from his experience being a satanic priest what he saw and what is really going on and how this like satanic religion is controlling the world and all this stuff. And I don't want to unpack that too much here all at once, but just like you discover what's going on. And it's almost like 9/11 was a way to capture the minds of conservatives and get them all hoorah. And then COVID was a way to capture the minds of the liberals and get them all, we have to be medically safe and all this stuff. And it's like they're just playing all these insane games on us to keep us under control, keep us scared. And when I look into all these events, and again, I'm not going to say anything I don't need to say here, but when I look into all these events, they all really smell very, very fishy, whether it's COVID, 9/11, the Kennedy assassination, all this stuff. I'm like, what's going on? What the heck is going on with all this stuff? These stories just don't add up. They don't really make a lot of sense. Like this whole idea that now we're going to be scared of all these terror attacks and there's terrorists everywhere and all this stuff. And it's like, I don't see where the terrorists are everywhere. And now with this pandemics, it's everywhere. And, it just seems like we're heading toward a culture of fear and censorship. And, we have a constitution and we're supposed to be built on freedom of speech, but it really seems like we have the oligarchs, we have the people who are in charge and powerful in society. And if you piss those people off and speak bad against those people or talk about what's happening, they'll get you in trouble. They'll get you in a lot of trouble, and it's just, man. And they ruined, like they stole everything from you. You were a professional, you were doing well in life, and they sent you to jail. And now you're homeless. It's just like, oh my God, it's really brutal. But I think we can't be scared of these things. We got to just say whatever, and things need to change in society. Because this whole consortium that's in charge is, man, it's not good. It really isn't.
Yeah, like when George W. Bush, when he was president, they quoted him saying, I don't know the exact words, but he said, the Constitution is just a goddamn piece of paper. Doesn't mean anything. We're in charge. We decide what's going on. He said he's the decider. He gets to decide. Well, he's not anymore, but all these people, they're playing the game. And like you said, the people at the top, they're all watching us fight amongst each other, the left versus the right, and they got everybody hating each other to a large extent. And I see it more this day and age than I ever have in my life. But they're at the top and they're just clinking their champagne glasses together, laughing about it, because they keep, divide and conquer. You keep the people divided and it's easier to rule over them because they're just fighting amongst themselves while we're at the top having parties. And, but they're still fighting with each other. They got their factions and they're all in a power struggle of who's going to be the top dog and who's going to be, the 12 families, if you will, if you want to call it that. They're fighting, those 12 families are fighting over who's going to be the top family, and they're, pulling the rug out from each other and playing their games against each other. They just got more money in the bank and they can pay for other people to fight those fights in a lot of cases. They don't have to be the ones out there doing it themselves. But yeah, I mean, we got, you've got things like you were talking about, the Bilderbergs and the Bohemian Grove, and you've got the Skull and Bones Society at Yale, and you've got, all these different, they're just clubs. They're just, it's like there's a club in downtown Pittsburgh called the Duquesne Club, and it's not a secret society or whatever, but it's where all the rich people go, and it's the mahogany walls and the cigar bar and the, the fancy restaurant and all that stuff. They have different places where they gather and do their thing. And, it's you got to look past that, you got to look past the club and try to figure out, who's obviously Joe Biden's not running the show. No. He can't even, he can't even go to the bathroom without someone helping him. So, who's really running the show? Who's really pulling the strings? Who's making the decisions here? And it's not his wife. It's not the people who are making the decisions. You don't know their name. You don't see them on TV. They're not in the public view. They're behind the curtain. They're running things. They don't want to be famous. They don't want to be known. They're the ones with all the money. They're the ones that are paying for Joe Biden to be the puppet who sits there right now.
No, 100%. There are secret handlers who want to remain secret, who don't want to remain known. And I've talked about this in some of my videos, that Satan wants to be a secret. Satan doesn't want to be known about. The devil wants to be like someone who you're like, you have no idea who he is, and you really think that Joe Biden's in charge. But there are secret handlers, secret controllers, secret people in the back. I think Epstein was one of them, was related to one of them. And, you look at the things he's doing and the things he had going on, you look at the Catholic Church and, they're also very powerful and, have a lot of hand on the control. There's the Illuminati, the Freemasons. But one connection I want to make between Epstein and the Catholic Church is they seem to have a similar kind of taste in, underage children and, things of that nature. And, you see a lot of that stuff in, out there where it's like, it seems like they all kind of are, Chris Hansen needs to come pay all these guys a visit or something who are running the world, because you see that one again and again. And it's just, it's just like, man, these people are weird and sick. And it's almost like if you know about like a prostitute and a pimp, I'm going to get a little graphic here, but like the pimp takes all the prostitute's money, and the pimp doesn't really protect the prostitute, and the pimp wants it to be like he doesn't exist. So the prostitute tells her clients, it's just me, I don't have a pimp, whatever. I think it's kind of like that. And there are these pimps in the background. We don't know who they are, but they're somewhere living it up, drinking their champagne and, doing whatever. And we're here in the world just fighting against each other, just kind of helpless right now, unfortunately. But, I think it is time for us to slowly but surely get educated, build up, fight back, get this world back and, reclaim it from the Matrix and from the beast and from this 666, thing that's going on. But yeah. I want to make a segue. I want to ask you about your time in jail. Did you ever have to defend yourself or have any hairy situations you had to deal with in there?
Well,
yeah.
One of the night, my first, okay, so let's see, I can break this down. When I first went to jail, the FBI wanted to torture me a little bit, kind of like they did with the January 6th people. I know some of these people personally because I was in Danbury with them, and I got to meet a handful of them. One's doing 9 years right now. This guy spent 28 months in that DC gulag in solitary confinement, 28 months. And what that means is that for 23 hours a day or 24 hours a day, because they probably didn't let him out of his cell every day, you're in like a tiny little cell for 23 to 24 hours a day. You might get to come out of your cell for an hour to walk around a cell block or something. But if you're in solitary confinement, you're going to be walking around the block by yourself. You're not going to be interacting with other people. And you might get to take a shower, or you might get to walk around a little space that's bigger than your cell. But for 28 months, this dude didn't see another person, didn't have conversations. That wrecked him. I mean, he's a pretty strong Christian, and I got to know him pretty well in the 4 months I was at Danbury. But I'm not gonna say his name, but you can easily find him on Google. So my version of that, when I was arrested, the night when they put me in this county jail in Pittsburgh, they put me in a padded room with no toilet, no bed, no nothing, with nothing but this, like, they call it a turtle suit, a blanket that you wear, no clothes at all, and no pillow, nothing. And I was left in this room, this padded room with nothing, no toilet, nothing. I was left in this empty room for 3 or 4 days to just lay there on the floor. And they would throw a bagged lunch through the slot in the door every now and then. I was able to, some of the guards there thought it was, a lot of them were right wing, and they thought it was bullshit what I was in there for once they found out. So they started letting me, like, they would take me to the bathroom and stuff, but I'd be shackled up like Hannibal Lecter, except for the hockey mask on my face, just to go to another cell where there's a toilet so I could, go to the bathroom. They did this for about 3-4 days, and then a psychiatrist came in and was like, "What the hell are you doing to this guy? You need to let him out." And the judge was going to hold the jail in contempt because they didn't bring me to my arraignment on time. And so this was all ordered by the FBI. So after that, there's so many stories I could tell, but you could come to my channel and hear some more one of these days. But I want to jump to my first day on a real cell block where I got to interact with other people, and it was more like the normal jail experience. I was all over the national news, like, constantly that week. My mug shot, everything. And so it was I had just gotten done with my detainment hearing, which comes after the arraignment. And the judge ordered me to be detained until trial. So I went from there directly to like a regular cell block. And when I walked onto the cell block, everybody looks over at me and they point, they're like, that's him. And they point up at the TV, and there I am, my mugshot and my face is on the TV, and they're doing a story about me at the same time I'm walking onto the block. So I got like that actually gave me a free pass while I was in that jail, because now everybody's like, dude, you're our hero. We love you, man. Oh my God, here's the guy who went to blows with the FBI. They're like, oh, you're awesome, dude. And like, so everybody was really cool with me, to tell you the truth. I really had all the guards liked me because they thought it was BS. They were all basically Trump supporters and that, that side of the fence. So I have very few problems with anybody in that jail. I mean, obviously, when you're in jail, there's fights, there's BS, there's people not getting along. But for the most part, when I was at that place, it was pretty, it was decent. Now this place was horrible. I went 14 months without seeing the sun. Never saw a tree. Never saw what the outside world looked like. If they drove me back and forth to court, it was in a windowless van that's blacked out. You can't even see out the windows when you go on a drive. And when they drive you to the court in downtown Pittsburgh, they go into an underground parking garage. They let you out. You don't see the outside. You don't see it. 14 months. Let's see, that from there, they took me to a federal holding facility for a couple of months. And that place was that was a lucky, like, once again, when people figured out what I did and they have their outside people look into it and all that, all of a sudden everybody's cool with me in jail. Like, everybody loves the guy in jail who, went down with the FBI. But this was a jail in Northeast Ohio. It's called Northeast Ohio Corrections Center. People know it as CCA. You can look this place up. It's crazy. Crazy. They did a raid a few weeks before I was there. They locked the whole jail down for a week, and they went around searching all the cells. They found something like 2,000 shanks and knives. They found 500 cell phones. They found 2 pistols. And I'm not even talking about all the drugs. And, everybody at this jail is a privately owned prison. These privately owned prisons are a lot crazier than the government-run prisons. All of the corrections officers in the privately owned prison, they were like these 18, 19-year-old girls.
What?
The TSA staff, when you go to the airport, the TSA security guards are harder than the guards at this prison. And
real quick, they're actual like 18-year-old actual 19-year-old girls and stuff.
Yeah, I'm telling you, these are like college age girls they had this one autistic guy. But I mean, this is a crazy place where I was in the good side of the jail. There were 2 sides to this place, one for the worst offenders, one for the better offenders. On my side of the jail, it was 3 to 5 times a day, people are getting stabbed. I saw one guy running out the door holding his chest after he had just been cut open, and he was like trying to keep his organs from falling out of his abdomen, and he really wasn't doing a good job. They're just like falling out. And this place was crazy. I mean, every single cell had at least 20 gallons of hooch being made. I mean, it was a free for all. The drugs, the officers are bringing in the drugs, the cigarettes, the drugs, all that kind of stuff. A lot of these 18 to 20-year-old girls that were the COs were pimping themselves out, whoring themselves out, getting that cut, getting that extra money from the inmates. It was just a free for all. The only good thing about it was that they had an outside yard. We could go outside for an hour a day. Let's see. From there, they took me to the Brooklyn Metropolitan Detention Center, there's 2 federal jails in New York City. One is where Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. That's the Manhattan one. And then there's one where they sent R. Kelly and Ghislaine Maxwell and all those people, and that was in Brooklyn. That place is a horrid place. The federal judges in New York City are saying they won't even send people to that place anymore because it's so out of control. I was only there for about a month, thank God. I saw a lot of crazy stuff. I saw more crazy stuff at the place in Ohio, to be honest. But and then from there, I went to Danbury, where they sent Steve Bannon. And honestly, the last 4 months of my ride, after everything I'd been through and seen, the 4 months at Danbury went by pretty quick. I was playing pickleball every day. I was running around a 1/4 mile track outside pretty much whenever you want up until about 8 o'clock at night. They have pool hall. You can play musical instruments. There's an arts and crafts room. You can get into that. They have a big church, 3 different libraries that you can go check out. They're small, but I mean, there was plenty to do. Let's see, somebody's asking about the food. The food's terrible. The food in prison you can look it up on YouTube. There's ex-cons that talk about the food. There's a guy doing a YouTube channel right now I just saw. He broadcasts live from inside whatever jail he's in. He disguises his face and his voice. But he was showing everybody what they got for Christmas dinner one night on the tray, and it's pretty bad. If you don't have somebody on the outside world in jail, you are going to starve. You're going to starve. There's no doubt about it. They don't feed you enough. You're getting like 1,000 calories a day, maybe. And the food is terrible. The way I counteracted that at the county jail, I worked in the kitchen 7 days a week sometimes. And when we worked down in the kitchen, we were allowed to eat whatever we want. We could make whatever we want. We could eat the cops' food. Like, we could eat pretty decent down there. And I actually gained like 40 pounds in the 14 air from eating all that food in the kitchen. The next 2 places I was at, the food was terrible. It's all terrible. So yeah, I was starting to lose weight after I left the fort. So from month 14 to when I got to Danbury, the food was pretty hit or miss. You're not getting enough food. There's different ways that you can deal with it. If you don't have money on your commissary, sometimes you could sneak back into the line at the chow hall and go twice. The guards there, they didn't care most of the time. Let's see. You still there? Your video froze.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, cool.
My video cutting out. Yeah, we're here.
Huh?
So yeah, I want to ask, when you were in Danbury, did you get to meet Steve Bannon and hang out with him?
No, he just went there a few days ago. Oh, so there's a gap. I got out of there in April. So, but I can tell you that dude, he's a jailhouse celebrity right now. Everybody in prison loves Donald Trump. I mean, it don't matter what color you are. Everybody's down with Donald Trump in jail, except for like maybe 2 out of 100 people in jail are not down with Trump. So Steve Bannon right now, he's got a whole entourage. They're all hooking him up. He's rich to begin with, so he don't need money on his commissary. He's got out every order, but people are feeding him. People are taking care of him. He's not going to be bored. I'm not saying he's going to have a good time. It's not a good place. It's still prison and it sucks. And they treat, some of the guards treat you like crap. But Danbury's a pretty laid back place. And as far as jails and prisons go, it's about as chillaxed as it can be. There's plenty for 4 months. There's plenty to do. I knew people who were there who were serving life. People who had been there for 10 years who've got 25 more years to go. I knew people like that. And, if I had to stay there a year, I'd be going nuts because there's stuff to do and there's things to keep you occupied and to help pass the time. But I was only there for 4 months. I couldn't imagine being there for years. But in the time that Steve Bannon's walking in the door, he's going to be out the door before he even knows what happened. It's just, that's going to be a quick ride for him. There will be anytime there's fog, you'll get locked into the dorms. They won't let you outside to walk around and do different things like that. But, even when you're locked, it's dorms. It's not jail cells at Danbury. It's like a big army barracks. And so you're in a room with like 80 people. There's bunk beds. It's just a big, giant open room. And then there's a kitchen area. And then there's a TV room. So you can go into the TV room and just sit there watching TV all night long. They don't tell you when you have to go to bed or anything like that. You could be out in the TV room at 3:30 in the morning watching TV if you want. It's a much more chillaxed place than a prison where you've got cells and bars and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. Real quick, I want to tell everybody check out Adam's channel, Adam Beast. Check his channel out. Also, throw Adam some donations. He is going through homelessness right now, so every little bit helps. So check his channel out, throw some donations to him, and help the brother get rolling. And then I want to make a segue, Adam, for maybe this next 10, 15 minutes before we wrap up. Right now, you're in upstate New York. You're homeless. Yeah, tell us about that.
I'm in Jamestown, New York, and I don't really know anybody here because this is where my ex lived. I was in a relationship. We were about to get married, and we lived. She owns a business here in Jamestown. I lived in about an hour north of Pittsburgh, PA. So we were 2 hours apart drive wise, but I worked from home and she owned her own business. We had the freedom to do whatever we want. So that was the long distance relationship. It really wasn't a thing. It was just before I got arrested, we were kind of talking about what comes next and how do we, I had a really cool, nice house that she liked, all that kind of stuff. So when I got out of while I was in prison, it was approved by probation for me to go live with her when I got out. And she had been taking care of everything outside of jail for me while I was in jail. And it was kind of like someone racing in the Tour de France, and you've got the yellow jersey and you're in first place, and it's like the last day of the race. And on the last day of the Tour de France, if you're in the lead,
Sorry, I think you glitched out. Just give this a sec, folks. Adam is in the public library on the public library Wi-Fi, so we did anticipate maybe a little bit of glitching out and a little bit of freezing and stuff like this. So yeah, just stay with us, folks. This is just kind of part of the experience. It's part of the game for this. Let's see if we can get him back. Yeah, let me read the chat for a sec. Let's see. Back here. Let's add them back in. Let me read the chat for a sec. We should be getting. Yeah, no, that's all good. We anticipated this. The public library Wi-Fi is doing its thing. Yeah, still a little bit glitchy. Uh, let's see. Let's just give this a sec.
give me a second here.
Yeah,
Might be able to fix that.
there we go. All right. Yep. Just give me a sec, folks. I'll read a few comments here. Are you not Cypress Hill? What?
All right, see if that helps.
There we go. I think we got you back. Yeah. So
Cool.
Glitched out, but yeah, I think you were talking about just starting out homelessness and stuff like that, and you're talking about.
Yeah, I came to James. Yeah, I came to Jamestown because I was in a relationship. I was supposed to be living there when I got out of prison, and that turned into a really toxic situation really fast when I came home, literally from day one. So 2 weeks later, I was trying to move to Texas. To my best friend had a place for me in Houston, and what's going on? Are we still? I don't know who's live and who's not right now.
Yeah, I can hear you. Keep talking.
Okay.
I'll come back.
So yeah, I ended up in Jamestown because of that. And so otherwise they would have sent me to Pittsburgh, PA, where my case is based out of, and where I don't even have a ton of friends in Pittsburgh anymore because I moved out of the city and lived out in Hillsville for over 6 years. And a lot of my friends packed up and moved all over the country. So, but that's where my home base would have been if it wasn't for the fact that this was all approved by federal probation for me to come live in Jamestown. And so now I'm kind of in this limbo state because they want me to go to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh office doesn't want me there without a job or a place to live. And so they're kind of having this they're kind of having this battle in their offices about who's going to get me. And I'm kind of stuck in between, like wondering, where am I going to live? Am I going to be in Jamestown? Am I going to be I'd rather be in Pittsburgh. So I'm fine with moving. I just don't have any friends that have enough room for me to stay at their place for a month or two until I would find a job quicker down there, because there's just a lot more going on. It's a bigger city. So yeah, Jamestown's kind of it's a bad place. It's a dysfunctional town. There's a lot of, part of the reason I haven't even gotten into on my own show, on my own channel, is looking for a job here. We're right on the Pennsylvania border. And the minimum wage in New York State's about $15 and some change an hour. In Pennsylvania, it's $7 an hour. So all the jobs here in Jamestown are filled by people coming across the border from Pennsylvania, because they want to get double pay. And who wouldn't? And so like I got hired at a couple of stores here in town, and then they did these and they knew what they were going to find on the background check. They knew that I had a criminal record because I was open about it. They said they didn't care. But then the background check goes to some corporate drone 2,000 miles away, and they just rubber stamp it with a big no. And so the day I'm supposed to start my new job, this has happened twice, they say, never mind, we can't have you here because you have a criminal record all of a sudden. And so, but you know, I know some people here that I've been meeting while I've been in town, and they're telling me that, you know, one person works at the store I just got turned down at. And he said 70-80% of the people there are from Pennsylvania coming across the border, because minimum. So they're taking away. It's almost like that, you know, it's almost like the Mexicans are coming and taking all our jobs. Well, in Jamestown's case, the Pennsylvanians are coming across the border and taking all the jobs, because the jobs pay twice as much as they do on the other side of the line. And so if I go down to Pittsburgh, where minimum wage is still $7 an hour, Pittsburgh can't hire, the companies in Pittsburgh can't hire people for less than what, you know, $15, $16, $20 an hour, because there's just so many. It's a bigger place, and they can't get away with changing people like they can out in the countryside. But on the other side of the PA border from Jamestown here, it's very sparse. It's God's country. It's redneckville, you know, and that's where I like to live. But that's why everybody's coming to Jamestown to take all the jobs, because you get twice as much money for the same job, and you don't have to drive more than a 20-minute drive to work. So,
yeah, real quick, I want to ask you about the shelters. I know you've talked about them on your channel, that there's a lot of draconian, there's a lot of weird rules, there's a lot of stuff going on. Could you rap about that right quick, about the
yeah,
shelters?
I mean, there's a good and a bad side. It's the one I'm in is probably one of the better ones you could find yourself in. It's clean. But on the flip side of that, there's a lot of rules. I mean, there are more rules to follow at the homeless shelter than there were in prison. You know, I can't even list them all, but like off the top of my head, you have to leave. I don't think you can leave before a certain time in the morning, and you have to be out of there at 9, and you can't come back until 4 p.m. You have to be gone all day. So anything that you need, you have to take with you for the whole day. You can't bring any outside food at all. They'll search you when you come in and out. Like, you can't bring any outside food. So if you have food stamps, for example, you can't just go stock up on some stuff and bring it and then have snacks and stuff at the ready. You can only, I can only really go and eat prepared stuff that that I can eat in one sitting. They feed us there. They give us breakfast and dinner at the shelter if you want it. I'm probably going to stay here at the library and skip.
Oh, looks like you froze up again. It's all good.
To be in the shelter at 9 o'clock at night, not back by, they'll lock you out for the night. So if I'm just outside in my t-shirt and jeans and I don't make it back on time, I'm out. Like, I'm going to have to sleep on a park bench or something for the night, and nothing. They won't even let you back in to grab a sweater or whatever. And at 11 o'clock, you have to go. It's like, it's Betty by time. It's night, just like you're a 2-year-old kid. You can't like sit up and read a book. You can't like chill on your phone. You can't just like put yourself to sleep. You have to actually go to bed, the lights off, laying in bed, sleeping, and they come around and they're like, it's like it's like being in a prison. In fact, I've watched other homeless people's channels on YouTube, and they all say the same thing. When a newscaster, the news reporter comes up with the microphone and says, well, why are you turning down the homeless shelter when they said you can stay there? And the dude looks at the reporter and says, because I don't want to go to prison. Because I'm better off sleeping in a cardboard box here out on the street than being treated like I'm in prison or like I'm a 2-year-old kid. And so that is the part that drives me nuts. You know, they're pretty cool with me, and I don't really have any beef with anybody there one-on-one or face-to-face or anything like that. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of people who do stupid things. They see a lot. They put up with a lot. There's violent people that come in and do violent things towards the people that work there. I mean, you know, I know why they have some rules. You don't want to have a free-for-all where people just go out to the bars and get drunk until 3 a.m, come stumbling into the homeless shelter to get a free bed, you know, and they're trying, you know, so I can understand why they have some of these rules. I'm not sitting here saying that, you know, it should be a complete free-for-all, but there are certain things that get under my skin in particular. And because I'm not someone who can go to sleep easy at night. So 11 o'clock, that's not even close to my bedtime if I'm out in the world. And there's other things. It's hard. You know, my whole life is based on working on computers and stuff. And so I have very small windows of time where I can go somewhere and have a Wi-Fi connection and to be able to sit in front of a computer and do things to move my life forward. And when I had a roof over my head, you know, a couple months ago, I could spend 12 hours a day off and on, take an hour break here, do this, do that. But I could sit in front of the computer anytime I felt like I wanted to work on something. Now it's like I got to break it down between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. And then I have to take a few breaks in the middle there because when you go to the bathroom, you can't just leave your stuff laying out. It's just a lot of challenges. And, you know, everybody who's homeless has a totally different situation. You know, not everybody at the homeless shelter is a drug addict, and it's not, you know, there's 20 different people there right now, and they all got 20 different stories of how they got there. And, you know, sometimes you're in a bad relationship and the wife takes the house and you are out on the street. And that happens. And, you know, there's a guy there right now. He has a job. He has a vehicle. I don't know his whole story, but I think that's kind of what happened to him. I think he had a bad relationship that he ended up out in the street and whatnot. And he's just staying there until he can find a roof in an apartment or whatever he's looking for.
Yeah, real quick, I wanted to ask you, I think the stream cut out, and if this is personal, that's totally fine. But I know you said you had a girlfriend who was supporting you while you were in jail. Then you come back, and then on the day you come back, something happens. I mean, if it's personal, that's fine. But I do want to.
It's a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name names, or I don't want to dox, you know, this person. But it was the whole time I was in prison, the whole time I was incarcerated for 20 months. This is when it cut out, and what I was getting at. We had a falling out right before I came home.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like she was there the whole time that I was going through this. I thought she was going to walk away from day one, but she stood by the whole time.
Yeah.
Supported me, 3 video calls a week, phone calls every day, text messages on these stupid little jail tablets every day. And so I was looking forward to coming home and spending my life with her. And about a month or so before I get out of prison, it was like an overnight, like, we're done. And, you know, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty details, but it was like one email to the next. You know, I miss you. I love you. I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you. And then the next day, I hate you. You ruined my life, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so it was kind of like I was saying, the Tour de France is going on right now. And it's the most grueling sporting event in the world. It's 25 days of riding your bicycle 100 miles over the steepest mountains in France. And You have participated in the Tour de France, the whole race. You worked your whole life for it, and now you're in it, and you're doing it, and you're in the lead. You're wearing the yellow jersey. You're Lance Armstrong. And on the very last day of the Tour de France, all you got to do is cross the finish line. You don't have to race on the last day. They're passing you bottles of champagne, and you're drinking, and you're having a good time because you don't have to cross the line first that day. You just have to get across the finish line at some point.
Yeah.
Because the time differential between you and the second place person, they're not gonna.
Yeah.
The Tour de France there's never drama on the last day of the tour, but it's like she was in the Tour de France, and here's the finish line. They're doing their laps around the Champs-Élysées, 8 laps, and here's the finish line, and she just pulls over to the side of the road and gets off the bike and says, "You know what? I don't want this," and just gets a DNF, did not finish. Decides to just give it up and not cross the finish line. I'm like, why would you stay with somebody, go through that whole thing for 20 months and support them and be by their side and put money on their commissary and pay for all this stuff and do all that stuff in the outside world and talk about how you can't wait to spend your lives together again and all that stuff. And then the day I come home, it's like done. And then it turned into 6 weeks of really crazy. I'm under less stress being homeless than I was living there. So if that's any, but that's the nuts and bolts of it. And my story's pretty typical with people who go to jail. You come home, the people you thought would be there for you when you get home it's like they don't want anything to do. And I've heard that story from others.
Sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you real quick. Did you meet her while you were in jail, or did you meet her before?
No. I was in a relationship well before I went to jail. For about 1.5 years before I went to jail. But we were about to get married, and when I got arrested, I thought she would leave because we had only been together for about 1.5 years. But we were really close, and it was the best relationship I'd ever been in my life. I can say that honestly. But then she decided to, stick by my side the whole time I'm in jail. If we got locked down for a few days and I couldn't reach out to her, there'd be text messages piled up when I could get a tablet in my hand. They have these tablets now in jail, but they're garbage. But you can get messages to and from the outside world on them. And there'd be like 6 messages from her. I hope you're okay. I love you. What happened? I haven't heard from you. Please let me know you're okay. She couldn't go 2 days without me talking on the phone with her. And but then like I said, right when I came home, right when I was about to wrap this up, she just changed overnight. Like it was so nobody who knows the story can make any sense of it. And I don't think, this is what women do. You're not supposed to make sense out of it. But yeah, now that's the only reason I was in Jamestown, and now it's time to get out of here. And, but I'm just kind of biding my time. I'm looking for a job here. I'm looking for remote jobs. I'm a software designer, and I've got leads that may come. I'm still in the running for some of those jobs. Things could change in the blink of an eye, just as fast as life went downhill in the blink of an eye. Another thing could come along and life could just go the opposite direction in the snap of a finger. So I'm frustrated, of course, but I also know that God has got my back, and he does things on his own time. Yeah. So sometimes you just got to be patient, and the patience, the patient part is the hard part for me. So
yeah, same here. I'm antsy. I got ants in my pants. I think with your ex, she might have liked the fact that you were in jail and she's supporting you, and she's sort of this Mother Teresa helping hold you down, emotionally supporting you and all this stuff. And then I think once you come back and there's not all this emotional support anymore, maybe it's like, oh shit, now we got to actually be together. I don't know, man. I don't know what the dynamic is, so I might be wrong.
I don't know.
But
I don't know. It wasn't good to come home to, and I don't want to say too much, only because I don't care about talking about it from my perspective, but I don't want to there's only so much I want to put out there.
So no, fair enough. And Yeah, God does have us. I'm a big God believer, and I believe that, this life is an adventure and a journey, and that God puts us through certain things, and that there is the matrix, the system, or the beast, or 666, and it's trying to get us, and we have to evade it and, sidestep it and, juck and jive it. And people like Martin Luther King Jr. or Abraham Lincoln or all these kind of heroes in history who like changed human consciousness for better and made the world a better place and put more righteousness in the world, like they end up getting killed or they end up having a bunch of crap they got to go through and stuff. So it's kind of that's
Yeah.
kind of the hero's journey. Jesus did get nailed to the cross, so we are kind of need to take up our cross on some level. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump either, to tell you the truth, but look what they're doing to him.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're just coming after him in every direction they can, trying to get him put in prison and make him a political prisoner. And so, I mean, yeah, look what they're doing to him. And there's another side, like when I was working for corporate America, doing the software design and stuff like that, I was very dissatisfied with my career. You know, just the corporate rat race, the golden handcuffs and all that kind of stuff. I was getting sick of it. And I didn't know how to get out of it because I want to be an artist for a living again. And I want to be creative. And I'm really into photography. If you go, I have a website. The website, it's very easy to remember. It's litgood.com. You can check out my photography work there to an extent. It's just a sample board of different photos I've taken. But I want to get into that. And so I watch Shark Tank sometimes. And there's this one of this one old lady, she was talking about sometimes businesses or sometimes people become successful because they have to be like it. And I never had to be. I never had to like put my nose to the ground. I always had a good paycheck coming in and I could just show up, do my job, get paid, get my weekends off, all that kind of stuff. And now I think about that thing that she would always say about sometimes the necessity to be successful is what drives people to do it, because now I'm in it. Like I have to figure something out. I'm living in a homeless shelter, wandering the streets of Jamestown, New York, using the public library Wi-Fi to try and cobble something together. And so it's kind of like forcing me to do things and to put time in on things that I used to come up with excuses not to put in time on before, like my photography and I want to put up a store on Etsy and I want to do this and I want to do YouTube videos, but I don't know what to do. And I'm a perfectionist. And so I would just kind of I would play around with something, but then I would be like, oh, it's not good enough. And I'd give up. And so like this situation, the one good thing about it is it's forcing me to forget about perfection. When I started doing these videos on YouTube, I'm just like this live chat. We bugged out for I disappeared for a minute, came back. Well, it's not perfect. I put up an Etsy store. I've got like 5 photographs up there right now. It's at shop.litgood.com. You go there, there's like 5 photographs. Fine. If I start putting up 4 or 5 images a month on the store after a year, that's like 100 or something photographs for sale. And it's a store now. And so I'm not worried about perfectionism at all. I'm juggling 20 different projects right now. And I'm just taking baby steps on each one. Just what can I do today? Inch that one forward, inch this thing forward, inch that other one forward. And, you don't get to the top of Mount Everest unless you take about 1,000 little steps along the way. If you just sit there at the bottom at base camp looking up at the top going, how am I going to get up there? You're never going to get there. So it's just a matter of, it's better to just, if you want to get somewhere, if you want to do something in life, it's better if you.
Let me interrupt. Someone in the chat's asking about donations.
Okay.
With some information.
Yeah, there's a PayPal. So the shop, there's a photography store. You can buy photographs. It's shop.litgood.com. There's 5 photographs right there. But if you go to the website litgood.com, there's a bunch of photographs there. And so if you were to see something on that website and it's not on the store, just send me a private message through the website and I'll put it on the store.
Also,
But also just for
in the description of your page, Adam Beast, you have links to donate.
in every video, I put a bunch of links in every video. But then for just straight up donations, I wasn't gonna do it, but other people said we'd like to see it. Give us a donate button or donate link. So you can go to donate.litgood.com, and it's through PayPal. You can use a credit card. You don't have to have a PayPal account. Yeah, that's there. So that's cool too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
throw Adam a couple bucks. Help him out. Help him get a coffee, toothbrush. I'm sure there's all kind of stuff you need.
I mean, even just coffees, it's like a lot of times I got to go to a coffee shop or a fast food joint to use the Wi-Fi, but you got to buy something. And so I'm like, $10 here, $10 there. That it actually helps because there were like 4 or 5 days ago, I was like, man, I don't even want to spend $10 at Tim Hortons to use the Wi-Fi today. But and then like somebody dropped $30 into the chicken bucket, and I'm like, well, I guess I can go to Tim Hortons now. So it all works. It's good. So I definitely prefer to sell the photography. I like when somebody wants to contribute and they get something in return. So that's why I'm focusing on the merch and the store. I'm working on some inspirational posters that I'm going to start. I've got 1 out of 11 done. So, and it took me about 20 hours to do. So you're looking at like 250 hours of labor for me to get all these posters done. But that'll be up. And like I said, I'm just inching the ball forward on 20 different things. But if I just keep at it for a few more months, those inches start to add up to feet, and those feet start to add up to miles over time. So
also, enough donations, you can get yourself a house, you can get a roof over your head, get a room to live in, get something better going on. So yeah, don't feel guilty about asking for donations. You're in a situation where you need a little bit of that cheddar, and you're putting good content out. So
yeah, I mean, I need something steady though to get a roof up, because it's like, even if I have a friend who says, hey, I can help you out with the first month's rent, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But, if I don't have steady income coming in, what am I going to do when the first of the month hits, And so I'm doing what I have to do. And, I'm willing to work at McDonald's if it came down to it. I don't care. Right now, I just want money in the pocket. I'm going everywhere in town, looking for whatever job I can get my hands on, and then I'll build from there. But I'm not going to stop working on all these things on the side. And if I do get a place to live, I'm still going to keep putting videos up on YouTube, but I'll just steer the channel into whatever direction it naturally goes, and maybe spin off a couple other ones to teach photography and to do some other things. And just kind of keep poking at it until, things start to happen.
Yep. And then what you mentioned about, working in corporate America, not being able to do art or creative things, just kind of being in this mediocre, just kind of boring grind, and then having these problems in your life. And then that kind of gives you a wall to be backed up against. It kind of gives you motivation. It kind of lights this fire under your ass where you're just like, you know what, F it. I'm just going to go on my own, do my art, do my life mission. So I definitely agree with that a lot. And, I haven't had the same things happen to me, but I do agree with that point of just like, hey, like perfectionism and all the BS just goes away, and you're just like, all right, I'm gonna make something. I'm gonna produce something. Like I'm gonna do it.
A lot of that perfectionism will hold you back from doing what you really want to do, because you'll just sit there and tinker and tinker and tinker, and it'll never be good enough for you. But then the people out there don't care.
Yep.
With the photography, there's a lot of I'll spend 70 hours editing a photo, and just perfecting things. And, I do a lot of HDR and panoramic stuff that's multiple images merged together. And I'm just constantly, and eventually you just get to the point where nobody's ever going to see it if you don't get it done. So, and this little mistake here, or this little thing there, nobody's going to notice it because they're scrolling by on Instagram or whatever, and they're looking at it for 5 seconds, and they're not going to see the and if you want to make high wall size prints, when somebody orders a wall size print, okay, I'll go back and I'll make sure the file, any little thing that's going to be a problem on a wall size print, I'll fix it now and then order the print. So yeah, I mean, there's that. When you were talking about corporate America, There's two sides to it. After what I've been through over the last couple of years, if I get a job doing that kind of software design and stuff, I'll be more thankful for having the job, and doing what I'm doing. I'll be thankful that it's putting money on my plate and, food on my table and all that. And the things that I didn't like about it will probably not grind on me as much as they used to. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing things on the side. It's just going to be a means to an end at that point. Because there is something, there are things I really want to do in life, and that's not one of them, other than paying the bill. But at the same time, it does wear you down when you feel like you're just working for corporate America day after day after day. In the software world, I'm working on, I'm getting it. I talked about this on my channel, but I worked at a couple of different banks, and at both banks, the banks have nothing but money because they just, they make money out of thin air. And if you understand how the banking world works. And so I'm in meetings where there's a group of 50 people, 60 people arguing about whether a submit button on a form should be green or blue. And they're arguing about it for 4 straight hours. And I'm just sitting there like, I'm the designer. And I'm like, just tell me what color it's going to be. And I'll make it, I can make it green or blue in blink of an eye, and we'll be done with this. Like, let's just get it done. And so, but you got 50 people in a corporate meeting arguing about a button for 4 hours. That button just cost the bank $10,000. And so imagine what the whole website costs. Imagine what the whole banking app costs if the button was 10 grand. And so I'm like, for 10 grand, I could build a whole website for somebody, a good website for a business, and, with some functionality and features. So that's the kind of stuff that corporate America would drive me nuts. You work and you work and you work, and you're making garbage at the end of the day. And it's something that's only going to be out for 6 months, and then it's going to be tossed aside and something new will be there.
There's not a lot. It's not like it's not like you have a life mission and a life goal. It's just like this dumb, stupid stuff, arguing about what color the button is. And I've had that at work, which is a lot of dumb fights, dumb arguments, just a bunch of ridiculousness you got to deal with. But at the same time, yeah, you are, appreciative for that money and stuff like that. But I definitely do understand just the monotony and the weirdness and it's just the lack of perspective. Who cares about?
Mm-hmm.
It's just
one of the good things about being a software designer is part of my job is making people's lives easier and jobs easier if I'm allowed to do the job. So like I'm filling out job applications right now. And so a good example is you go and apply to one job, and filling out the application takes 5 minutes, but then you go apply to some other job online and their form is cumbersome, and there's just tons of things and it takes an hour and a half to fill the thing out because it's badly designed. And so I'm the guy that comes in and not just decides what things look like and make things look beautiful and aesthetically pleasing and, easy to read and all that, but also evaluating it from, can we reduce the amount of time it takes somebody to apply for this job from an hour down to 5 minutes and still capture the same information that we need to capture? But, look at how cumbersome, like some of them will have a form that says, what's your availability? And it should have a drop-down menu that just says anytime, if you want to tell them anytime. But then there was one I had to fill out, and I had to literally put a check mark in 75 different spots going across the whole week grid that I'm available, just to say I'm available anytime. And it took 10 minutes to do that. And so like these are the kinds of things that a user experience designer analyzes, and it's not just graphic design. And so that part of the job is fun when you can say at the end of the day that you made someone's job easier. Somebody sitting at a desk that used to have to take a week to do some complicated task, if I can reduce that to where it takes them 3 or 4 hours instead of a whole week, then that's something that you can go home and feel accomplished about at the end of the day, because you're making people's lives better, and they're just going to have to, juggle 20 clients instead of 2 that week. But even so, you're making their lives easier. So there's that aspect of it. But at the same time, you get the bigger the company, the more bureaucracy. And, that's why I would never work for the government, because the government is like at a level way beyond the worst corporation in terms of bureaucracy and politics and all that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I mean, with all this stuff, it's like turning around a giant battleship, Whereas instead of having a maneuverable little jet ski or something like that, we got to turn that battleship around. That's what corporate America, the government bureaucracy's like, and it's so
Mm-hmm.
you're just like, man, I just want to pull up this little dock, move around, be maneuverable. But no, you're driving a semi truck with 5 trailers on the back, and it's like, put me on
Right.
B, make me maneuverable. So I've been around corporate America a bit, and I do find a lot of frustrations with that stuff. That being said, I think we're going on pretty long here. I'm at about
Sure.
a point where I'd like to end. Do you have any closing statements you'd want to make, or any shout outs or anything like that you want to do before?
No, I mean, I think my username on YouTube is Redeeming Light. I'm almost to 1,000 subscribers. That blew my mind. When I started doing this, I thought maybe 10, 20 people would be watching my videos, like friends and people I know. And it just kind of blew up. Like within 3 videos, they were getting like 2,000 views, and it just keeps going from there. So yeah, you could check that out. I guess once I cross that 1,000 subscriber threshold, then you can unlock more monetization features and all that kind of stuff. And you might have to watch an ad or hit the skip button. But if you're surfing around YouTube all afternoon, that's what you're gonna do. So, but other than that, I don't really have anything to say. I think we covered a lot, and like you said, we've been talking for a while. So
Yep. I'm gonna say a quick prayer, right quick, if you're cool with that. I'm gonna say
yeah,
just God, be with Adam, help him in his situation. Help him, get out of homelessness, make his channel succeed, and help him be a voice for truth and for freedom. And God be with us all. Help us through our situations. I know a lot of us are struggling with stuff, so just help us with all the things we're going through. And Lord God be with us. We're not perfect. You are. So, just be with us, God, and yeah, much love to everybody.
all right. All right. Well, thanks.
Yep. You too, Adam. You too. I will.
All right.
Gonna
Peace out, everybody. And, we'll talk again. All
Yep. All right. I'll
right.
see you later.
See ya.